investors and agents who want to work with investors or who already do, or agents who already invest themselves. So that's the audience. Hence, that's why it says investor agent, make more money, not more work, because the basic principle is you're leveraging what you're already doing. In other words, if you're an agent, you already have a license, you're already out there using a license, what we're doing is showing you how and why you should leverage your license with multiple sources of customers, not just one. Where most agents fail is they only serve owner-occupants. In other words, the traditional agent serving traditional client looking to buy and sell their own home. And the risk of that is, if you've been around long enough, you witnessed it during the last recession. When the recession hit, half the agents got out of the business. The reason is they only service owner-occupants. They did not service investors. Those who service investors not only survive, they thrive, because investors keep buying and selling regardless of whatever the economy is doing. They don't care. Now, statistically, it looked like the investors were really going full steam ahead during the recession, but as far as dollars and cents goes, it was the same volume. It just looked bigger relative to the owner-occupant volume because the owner-occupant volume dropped so dramatically. So in any case, and if you're an investor, by all means, you should be getting your license because you're already out there engaged in investing activities. And while you're out there, you obviously can't buy everything. So those that you can't buy, you should refer to your fellow investors and earn a commission from it. That's really what we're going to be talking about here, these next 5 classes. That's what I did, and it ended up being so big and so profitable, it ended up surpassing my wealth and income I built from investing in properties themselves, far surpassing it, because I went on to expand and build a brokerage company and a property management company and a title company, all from that just working with investors. Now, I'm not saying everybody here has to go and build brokerage companies and all that kind of thing. That's not necessary. You can make plenty of money just being an individual agent servicing investors. I did for years, and I did for a number of years, 100+ transactions each of those years. I did it part-time. I didn't have any assistance or admin help. I was still investing myself, and I was a dad. I mean, I had children. I was engaged in after-school activities, and it didn't consume me, and I made a lot of money doing it, 6 figures right out of the gate. So let's dig in here. Let's page forward. Okay, that's some legal stuff. And you guys, by the way, this manual, this quick start, this is called a quick start system that we're showing here on the screen. You are all going to get this, and it'll likely will be in tomorrow's email. So look for this in tomorrow's email. But essentially, if you're an investor who is a real estate agent or considering becoming an agent, this is for you. If you're an investor, same thing. Essentially, you're learning how to leverage your time and make more money, not more work. Let's see here. I follow what's called the wizard formula. A lot of people know me as the cash flow wizard because I was always able to generate substantial, sustainable income on a regular basis. The wizard formula is W. W means you are willing, W willing, to get outside your comfort zone. This requires you to think outside the box, to be open-minded and accept and compile and digest and use new information and tools, which you're going to get here. I, investigate. You need to investigate your dream. It doesn't matter whether you're investing yourself or not. You don't have to be an investor to do this. If you're an agent, I suggest you invest. If you talk to any highly successful real estate professional, those who are at the top of the game usually end up investing. And a lot of investors, by the way, have gone on to do just the very same thing we just described. Z, zero in on your plans. You got to focus and target. The more you do, you gain confidence and leverage by leveraging your current activities. The A is take action. Nothing happens until you take action. You don't have to go out and get 100 transactions right out of the gate. You only want to go out, and you only have to go out and get 1 transaction. That's where it all starts. Just 1. You don't need 10 transactions tomorrow. You just need 1. You'll get another one the next week, another one the week after that. By the way, I mentioned earlier I was able to do 100+ per year myself. That's 2 a week. How would you like to do 2 transactions a week? R is ramp it up. So once you cash in on your first transaction, you need to take massive action, multiply your results. And we're going to get into that. I'm going to show you a little bit here what I mean by that. And D is don't do it alone. Do it, but don't do it alone. This is where a lot of people fall short, and this is where I used to fall short. I spent years trying to do everything myself and on my own without any coaching, any guidance, any leadership, any good teacher, mentor. And when I started, I now have more than one coach. Matter of fact, I'll show off a little bit. I started off with coaches that were offering, it was for like $1,000 a month or something, you could get coaching, and I started with that, and I offer that too. But now I literally just wrote a check last month for $100,000 for a new coaching program, and it's already. I'll talk more about that by the end of October. I'll explain to you what that is and how it's going to apply to you. So in any case, don't do it alone. Many have succeeded by getting proper education, information, and guidance rather than attempting to do it on their own. So that's the wizard formula. I suggest you live by the same formula. That's what I do. There's a table of contents. Let's see. Now, a lot of people ask for this. Should they be an investor first before they get their license? Should they be an agent before they start to invest? Is it both? Well, the reality is, the answer is it depends on you. Everybody's different. If you're young and just starting out, well, that's going to dictate one answer. If you're experienced and starting over, that's another answer. If you have capital, excess capital, you're going to have a different answer. And if you have residual income, that obviously will dictate a different answer. So before we get into that, I want to just briefly go over this. So this guide is for investors who are considering becoming agents and agents who are considering working with investors. And, of course, agents who realize they should be investing themselves. Because agents who are on this program, if you're not already investing, by the end of the 5 weeks, chances are you're going to be convinced yourself that you need to be investing. So now I'm probably going to jump over here. Matter of fact, let me go over this real quick. So Module 1, we talk about the two roles and some basic analysis here. We're going to go over some tools that I use, investors use, and now you're going to be able to use to determine the towns you want to invest in and the neighborhoods. We're going to do that. Module 2 is we're really digging heavily in the rules of engagement for investors. So you're going to be able to think like investors think. And I'm going to show you a process that really is the process. It's the $1 million process. It's the exact process I went through. I developed. It's proprietary, that nobody else has. Nobody else teaches this because nobody else has it. Nobody else developed it. I did. But that's the difference. This is basically about relationship management. And when you know how to manage the investor-agent relationship, you'll know what I know, and which is really how to make that big income, 6 figures and eventually 7 figures. That's right. If you follow this path and you do go on to build brokerage and property management, you should have no reason to not make $1 million+ a year. Module 3 is the rules of engagement for agents. You need to know how you operate relative to the investors. Module 4 is where we really get into some good, meaty, juicy stuff. That's the marketing and advertising. This is how you actually build your own database of investors, if you're an agent, that is, or if you're an investor becoming an agent. Module 5, we get into the big stuff. This is really where we stretch your imagination and show you exactly how to apply what I'm going to show you next here, which is the multiple streams of income concept. So let me flip over there. So if you could, I would highly encourage you guys to take notes. But again, remember, you're going to get the quick start guide. Everything we're looking at here, you're going to get in your email tomorrow. But for now, if you want to go ahead and take some notes on a scratch pad, please feel free. Here's the big difference. Here's what makes the difference between traditional agents and investor agents. If you put a traditional agent in here, the only thing they really have available to them is working with owner-occupants and possibly a referral now and then. Yes, you could build a team, but it's not going to be much of a team. Trust me. I've done them. I've seen them. But the reality is most traditional clients are not going to give you referrals. When they sign that HUD-1 statement, a settlement sheet at closing, their mindset just completely shifted to now owner, not buyer, but owner, or seller, or whatever the case is. They want the keys, they want to unload the truck, and they want to jump in the pool, and you now are a distant memory. Now, if you switch this over, let's say you're an investor agent. You work with investors. You're sitting at the settlement table. as soon as investor signs the HUD-1 settlement sheet, okay, the very next thing he or she's going to say is, hey, whatever you are, Terrence, I'll pick on you since I'm picking you earlier. Say, Terrence, set me up for my next investment property. Okay, now some light bulbs should be going off here. That's right. These investors are going to be your bread and butter on a consistent basis. And guess what? You only had to earn that relationship, develop it one time. If you develop it, owner-occupants, you got to build a new relationship with every new client. That is extremely time-consuming and costly. That's why I love working with investors. I developed a relationship one time and I serviced them over and over and over again. Now you have 8 possible streams of income. I only advocate developing 3 out of the gate, and I'm going to show you how to do that real quickly here. And again, now we're going to jump back over. I just wanted to show you this initially. Let's say you work with rental investors, people who buy rental properties. They buy a lot of them, just like me. I bought, my first year out investing, guys, I bought 10 multi-unit buildings. Okay, that's a lot of commissions. But here's what happens. These guys ultimately are going to need property management. That's right. And you are allowed to manage properties for people. You have a license. You can't create a company without being a broker, in most states that is. But as an agent, you should be able to manage properties under the umbrella of your broker. Now, I know certain companies do this very easily and readily, and certain companies don't. And I'm not picking on anybody here, but if you're working for Coldwell Banker, Prudential, or Berkshire Hathaway, and those guys, they're not going to let you do it. You got to switch. You got to go to a company like Keller Williams, who actually coaches you and teaches you how to build your own business, and they encourage you to do this. I know multiple agents who run property management companies under the Keller Williams umbrella, and they do it on their own. So automatically now, when you work with rental investors, a second stream of income is just opened up for you. Now, I'll give you a quick example. Let's say this guy owns 10 rental units. They each bring in $1,000 a month, and you charge 10% management fee. You just made $1,000 a month just for managing his properties and maybe taking 5 to 10 hours of work under your belt. I would take 5 to 10 hours of work for $1,000 more, because guess what? It gets better. You also get to charge a leasing fee when you have to fill a vacancy. You get another month's rent. An average of 1 a month is not unreasonable. That's $2,000 a month you get just because you helped this guy buy and sell his rental properties. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. That's how powerful this is. Now you look at a flipper. You help the guy doing flips buy the property initially. You get a commission there. Maybe it's low because it was only a $50,000 property. You list it for him when he sells it for $200,000. You get a commission there, and all flippers sell their properties. Very, very few do not sell because that's their business. They're in the business to turn those properties over and recycle their capital. So you get a second commission. Let's just say it's $200,000. You get one side. That's 3%. That's $6,000. Okay, but it gets better. Let's say you found the buyer. You get another $6,000. Let's say your minimum commission is $3,000, because a lot of firms say, hey, if you buy a $50,000 property, we got to charge you a minimum commission. And I've done the same thing. I still do it. That's $15,000. One client, one property. But he's not done. This guy's going to do more of those. He's probably going to do 4 or 6 a year. I know investors who do 12 a year. I know investors actually do 50, 60, 70 flips a year. How would you like to service those guys? So you see the power of being an investor agent and the concept of multiple streams of income. So I want you to, if you guys tomorrow when you get this, print this off and keep it, make notes, because you're going to build to this over time. All right, you're going to, by the time the 5th week is up, you're going to understand fully not only what this means, but how it works and why, and you will be off and running. So now let's jump back over. I feel like I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but I wanted to explain that a little bit so you had a broader view of what we're going to be talking about. Okay, so Module 1, let's get into the rules of engagement. Now, typically the rules of engagement for investors and the rules of engagement for agents do overlap. And where they overlap is what we're going to talk about here. So, we talked about what comes first. Should you be an investor first or an agent, or vice versa? What comes first, the chicken or the egg? The reality is, it all depends on your particular circumstances. When you're a real investor, you're not just doing it as a hobby. A real investor is doing it full time. They're making substantial income from it, and they're able to retire. And that's exactly what I did. I retired when I was 40 years old because I invested. I invested heavily in rental properties. Now, if you're if you're an investor and you actually make an income, regular recurring income stream, building wealth, investing in real estate, that's what you want to do when you're an investor. So if you're investing, you're making good money. If you're an agent, you're making good money. If you're an investor agent, you're making great money. Okay. So, but we need to talk about your particular circumstances. If you already have a license and you're already investing, you can listen. You don't need to take too many notes. But if you're an investor and you don't have a license, the bottom line is go ahead and get your license. There's no reason not to, and you'll understand more fully. I could spend lots of time trying to convince you, but it doesn't matter because the curriculum is going to convince you. All right. Now the question is if you don't have your license and you're not investing, what do you do? Well, I suggest get your license first, start generating some income right away, and learn the investing business so you can save up your commissions to buy properties, and you'll be in the investing game. If you're a middle-aged person who's changed careers or been laid off, whatever, you have some assets sitting around, get your license again there. If you have cash, capital, and income, you should be investing absolutely right away. So that gets into that a little bit discussion there. I give the different examples. If you're experienced and starting over, you have some capital, I suggest get your license. We talked about that. If you have residual income and you're in good shape, God bless you. By all means, maybe you should start flipping houses. A lot of people teach flipping first and then go buy rentals. I don't advocate that. I suggest pick up rentals first to build a solid foundation, and then you go flip. That's if you're an investor. And again, if you're an agent, I would heed the advice. I'm not going to discredit any of the other teachers and gurus out there, but I'm telling you, you will thank me if you buy rental properties first and do flips later. Because let's just imagine, for example, you do a flip and the flip doesn't go well. Even if you break even, it's about a third of them don't work the way you want them to. Let's say that ends up being your first flip. Well, you tie up all your energy, time, and capital for potentially 6 months by the time you buy the property, close on it, remodel it, put it back on the market, advertise it, get it under contract and sell it. Could be 6 months. That's a lot of time for your money to be tied up. Let's say this flat out you lose money on it, which could happen if you don't do it the right way. It could knock you out of the game completely. But if you buy rental properties, you build up a solid base of cash flow. Even if a flip doesn't go well, you're still in the game. You're still making income. So you see the logic there? Okay. Now, let's see here. We talked about if you have capital, residual income, obviously you have more options available to you. Never fear, you have to start somewhere. Now, I was 22 years old, just getting out of college when I bought my first property, and I never looked back. By the way, here's you guys can all go to the website, myinvestorservices.com. You can email me, Gary at winrealtyadvisors.com. That's the parent company I created. You can even call our number and ask for me there. We can always discuss this in more detail one-on-one. I do offer one-on-one coaching to people. You always get one for free with me. You always get a half hour free. So if you haven't done that, I suggest give me a call or call the 1-800 number and set it up with Beverly, and we'll get you a free coaching call. So let's get going here, guys. All right. Now, rules of engagements for investors. But now, before I jump into this, any questions so far on what we talked about? Because if you do, use your chat box and let me know, and I'll answer the question before I get into too much detail. Because we're going to get into some nitty-gritty detail here in a second. Actually, we'll tell you this. I can see a question right there, and here's how I'm going to answer this. Okay, so if you're an agent and you've heard other agents talk about investors and your broker says, we just go out and get the $1 million listings, forget the investors. They are missing the boat because there are some myths regarding investors. And one of the myths is investors are cheap and they only buy little properties that are $25,000 and all that. That's not the case. Yeah, they're out there. But who do you think's buying those 20-unit buildings and the 30-unit buildings and the 10-unit buildings? And who do you think's flipping in those nice neighborhoods? Those are investors. We teach you how to find those investors. And by the way, if you do find yourself working from time to time with somebody buying a $50,000 property, never fear. They will move up, I promise you. And by the way, you always want to implement a minimum commission policy. You know, some people say it should be 2,000, some say 3, some say 4. To me, it should be relative to your experience, what you bring to the table, and relative to your market. I'd like to think that minimum commission will be equivalent to 3% of a $100,000 property, or 3% of a median price property for your area. That should be your minimum commission, or the bottom of that range, that is. So, in any case, again, investors grow. I have investors who have actually retired from the corporate world because they bought so many properties. And so they made a lot of money, which means I made a lot of money. There's another myth. Investors buy junk. Well, let's look at the flippers. Flippers don't make money flipping houses in poor neighborhoods. They make money flipping houses in middle class or upper middle class or affluent neighborhoods. I love working with flippers. Those are good commissions, and those are easy sales. They're always top-notch properties when they're done remodeling them. Even those buying rentals, right now, turnkey rentals are the thing to do, and they're always looking for the best property at the best price that need the least amount of work. Sounds like good deals to me. A third one is investors are sometimes are crooked and they break the rules, and you know, there's bad apples in every industry, but that's just simply, that's the exception. Just like any other endeavor, most investors are not crooked, they're creative. If you talk to good savvy brokers who know what they're doing working with investors, they will tell you, you know, here the answer is, I will just give you one of the tips and tricks I use. If investors come to you and want to use their own forms, what I say is, it's better to use the state-approved forms, the forms approved from the State Board of Realtors, and then you add your own addendums in there. That's right. You can take all the criteria from your investor, teacher, guru forms and apply those in an addendum form to the standard agreement. That's how you get past all that. So as you can see, within 5 minutes, I just dispelled all those myths, and I'll send you some reports, by the way, the next week or so, that'll explain that kind of stuff further. But back to this. All right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about macro management, macro area management. You need to know what areas, broad areas, to invest in. That's like the city or town level. Then we'll break down into the properties, and then the neighborhoods, and then the properties. So if you now, a lot of things, there's a lot of variables here. If you're in a heavily populated area like LA County, New York City, you're going to have a different mindset than you will if you're in, say, like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, you know, parts of Georgia like Atlanta, parts of Florida, parts of Illinois, around Chicago. You know, Houston and Chicago are big. As a matter of fact, they're 3 and 4 in size, only behind LA and New York. New York's number 1. But when you get into the medium-sized areas like Hampton Roads, Virginia, there's the area they call 7 cities. Jacksonville, Florida. Awesome investment areas. Houston, Texas, even though it's big, that's a huge, great area to invest in. St. Louis, Missouri, awesome place to invest. Memphis, Tennessee, my goodness. I mean, areas around, all around Atlanta, even away from Atlanta. Macon, Georgia, areas in the Carolinas. But in any case, relative to those areas, we're going to apply some tools here. All right, and we don't get into the neighborhoods until we've identified the towns. So the first thing we're going to do is look at a tool called Bank Tracker. And Bank Tracker was developed by students at American University. And I'm going to show you some examples here, okay? So if you go into, it's called Investigative Reporting Workshop. And the reason this is important is you can identify banks who have troubled assets. You can call those banks and ask them, how can you help them sell their troubled assets? You have investors working with you. And it works. There's thousands and thousands of banks all over the country. We're going to look at one called Town Bank, headquartered down in Portsmouth, Virginia. And you can see, based on the graph, the national median is the light blue line. Okay, it goes like that, big broad arch. You can see, yep, around the year 2010, things were pretty bleak. But look at Town Bank. Town Bank actually was late to the party, but then when they got to the party, they partied too hard. And they had a lot of troubled assets back in the beginning of 2011. And only now are they really, they're still above the national average, but they're in much, much better shape. But if I was in Hampton Roads, Virginia, Chesapeake, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Portsmouth, Hampton, Newport News, whatever, I would be going to Town Bank and asking them if I can help them sell their troubled assets. Okay? Here's one in Pennsylvania, First Commonwealth Bank. You can see back in '09 and '10, man, they were in deep trouble. But you know what? They pulled out of it. Look at them. They actually are now slightly below the national average. And I know First Commonwealth Bank, they did an awesome job of cleaning up their portfolio, just like a lot of banks did. But First Commonwealth in particular is an awesome bank. Let's see. Now, as we speak, markets are changing rapidly. I mean, last year already in Southern California, Phoenix, Arizona, even parts of Texas, there were areas where price escalations were 15%, say like in Laguna Beach, California. Areas of Phoenix where prices were escalating as much as 50% at certain time frames. That's just crazy. Now you have other parts of Texas that are still suffering. Same thing in Florida and most other parts of the country. They're still digging out. They've actually gotten rid of a lot of bank inventory, although there's some areas that still have a lot of bank inventory. But they essentially have not recovered all of their losses over the years. It's going to take some time, which means opportunity for us. So big kudos to the guys at American University for putting that together. They're still at it. I love those guys. I love that tool. I've used that a lot over the years. Here's another one. Now this one is actually based on census data, but I want to show you this too because it talks about one specific area, and a lot of areas have these organizations, regional websites that give you lots of cool data. I want to show you here an example. So in other words, SPC is Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission. You might have an Eastern Pennsylvania Commission. You might have a Northeastern Ohio Commission. But let's look at this one. And again, all this data is based on census data. I'm going to give you the census website in a minute. Now, again, you can write this down if you want. spcregion.org for Western Pennsylvania. But you're going to get this in email tomorrow, so don't worry, okay? Now let's look at some of the data that's here. Population, the breakdown, okay? The number of people in each age group, all right? Pretty important stuff. How about the number of people, male and female, over 18, over 21, over 62? That can be very important to you. You know that if you have an area where a lot of people are over 62, you're going to start to have some turnover in those areas. Elderly people are going to start moving and selling their older homes. They're going to be older homes that need to be remodeled, resold to the younger people, and that creates a flipping environment, okay? This is how you determine that. I'm showing you I'm giving you the magic secret formula of how successful agents and investors are successful. They don't just guess, guys. They study the data just like me, okay? Let's see what else is out there. How about household sizes, types of households, okay? How about how many units are occupied, how many units are vacant, owner-occupied versus rental? Can you imagine how important this stuff is? This is absolutely critical if you're investing in it, or if you're an agent who's either investing yourself or servicing your investors. If you know this stuff, do you think that they were going to give you more respect and love you? You absolutely better believe it. By the way, you can determine which are the good rental areas because essentially anything over 50% rental is a good rental area. If it's 2/3, that's premium. That's prime, grade A rental area. If it's on average, if it's 2/3 rentals, because you have a preponderance of properties available and consumers available to fill those rental properties. Okay, and it's not overrun. You still have a good, strong home ownership in there. Now, if you have an area that's mostly owner-occupied, those would be better areas for flips. Okay. You also want to keep track of your vacancy. So this data is absolutely, absolutely critical. Okay. Let's see here. Moving on. Sorry, I got to hit this way. You can get information about people on disability. So you know if there's areas with the rental areas, what's available in the way of subsidies, how many people are getting subsidies. Let's see here, all kinds of stuff. I'm not going to get into all these details. You can see what's out there. And again, you're going to get this in your email tomorrow. Okay. Let's see, selected economic statistics. How about income levels? Do you think this would be important? You better believe it. Now, if you're an investor agent, you're representing multiple investors. You want to be able to drive them to the areas that make sense for rentals, if they're buying rental properties, and those that make sense for flips, if they're flippers. A lot of investors do both. You need to know that. You need to know what their goals are. You can use this data to drive them to the right areas. So you know if median income Let's just say you're in, let's see, what would be a good area? How about San Diego, California? Median incomes are higher out there. They're probably more like 67,000. If you look at the areas, this is a particular neighborhood. This is a neighborhood called Avalon Borough. By the way, it's in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania. You know, you can, if you look in here, you see that, let's see, 146 people make 75 to 99,000. I know that that's well above the median income nationally, okay? Well above it. That will be a pretty good area, I would think, to go in, probably to either a flip or buy rentals. Let's see here. People below poverty level, at or above poverty level, you can see here in this particular neighborhood, Avalon, vast majority are at or above poverty level, thank goodness, okay? Oops, sorry, let's see here. Here's more, let's see here, more income data, okay? And look at the preponderance here, 50 to 59,000, 50 to 60 grand. You have to apply this, whatever your neighborhood is, you can pick the neighborhood and apply this to it, and you'll know where you stand. You'll be able to know precisely which are the good neighborhoods to flip and which are the good ones to invest in. When you know this stuff, this is why people like me and other investor agents are able to make so much money and retain so many clients and build such a solid clientele, because we know this stuff. Most agents do not know this stuff. They don't study it, and I'm giving it to you on a silver platter. Okay, more about the housing units, how many one bedrooms, how many two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You guys can look at all this yourselves. How about the value of the homes? Let's see, in this particular area, the great majority is going to be, let's see, 50 to 60, 70 to 90, 100 to 125, and of course some in the 90 to 100 range. So anywhere between 50 and 125 is, that's where your consumer base is in this particular market. So I can tell you, I can flip in this area, and I can also rent in this area, okay? Let's see, more profiles. How many vehicles do they own? And that's not the most important thing, but could be important. Let's see. Okay, next subject is, this is called Melissa Data. It's available for every single zip code in the entire country. If you're from Canada, I think they're developing this in Canada too. So let's see here. If you are, and by the way, this comes from the system called Every Door Direct. This is the U.S. Postal Service, EDD, Every Door Direct. They use this data. So let's get into this a little bit. I'm going to show you how you can use this and why this is important. Let's see. This is zip code 23662. Says Poquoson, Virginia. That's a small area. I think has about, they have about 17,000 people in Poquoson, if I'm not mistaken. So what you want to do is skip by all the ones that say P.O. boxes. Look in the areas down here. You look at the residential count, and then you look at the average household income count, the average property value. What you want to do is look for a sweet spot. So we can see here there's 736 people make 47 grand and live in a house around 200,000. But if you go down, look at this. 774 people live there that make 62 grand on average and live in $400,000 houses. So where do you think I'm going to drive my investors to look for flip opportunities? Because we got a lot of people there making decent money with awesome house values. You got it. I'm driving to this neighborhood. Let's look at the next one up here. 614 people make 58 grand and live in a house worth 276, 310. I'm not going to take them here because look, I can drop down another notch. People make a little bit. There's more people making more money, living in more expensive homes. So this rung here, that's going to be county code. It's 51735, and this is the important thing, the route. This is the postal route. So postal route 5, C5, and postal route C7, these are prime targets for people who want to flip. Okay, same thing here. Let's see, 5, and that's pretty low, but let's look at this. Here's a good one, 724, makes 75 grand, and live in $366,000 houses. So I'm going to mark down postal route CO2. You better believe I'm going to show my investors this and say, if you're down in this area, you want to invest in these 3 postal routes. Postal route's going to be less than a zip code. Okay? The zip code for this area, again, by the way, is 23662 if you happen to live in Tidewater, Virginia, or what they call the Peninsula section, which is Newport News and Hampton and York. This could be pretty valuable data. Okay, that's again, if you want to write this down, it's melissadata.com. Again, you're going to get this in your email tomorrow, so don't worry about it. Let's see what else we have here. Another breakdown. Let's see, this is 15229. This is in Pittsburgh. It's actually an area I know that's called Westview. So let's see here, residential count. How about this? Let's look at apartment count, because I know Westview is a great rental area and a great flip area too, for that matter. But let's look down. Let's see, business count, apartment count. Okay, here we go. Apartment count 177. There's 177 apartments. Let's see, 400 residents, making 33 grand. Average property value 114. Now that might not sound all that great, but these are rental properties. Okay, so these are guys. They're going to buy multiple properties, typically several in a year. You get all those commissions, plus you get to manage them for them. You get all those management fees. So I'm absolutely going to show these guys postal route C41 and zip code 15229. Let's see, here's another populous 133 units, 467 residents, making 42 grand, average unit value 155. Absolutely, C57, that's going to be on my target list of areas to show my investors. And again, a postal route, guys, is just a few streets. You could easily dominate a neighborhood by using this data. You bring your investors there, you show them the sweetest deals. And I'm going to show you, by the way, as a matter of fact, in Module 4, again, this is five modules. Module 4, I show you the marketing and advertising. I'm going to show you the exact letter that I use to write people in these postal routes, and I only send them to people in the postal routes. So I don't spend hundreds of dollars on postcards going all over the place with no response. These letters get, 12%. I've actually had letters give me 50% callback returns, return calls. Now I only sent out 50 or 100 letters. That's 50 or 100 bucks. But if I get 25 people calling me and I get 5 deals out of it, you better believe that's worth it. That is far better than any postcard campaign you can come up with. You just can't compete. That's why working with these investors is so much more profitable. You get so much more bang for your buck. It is unbelievable. So in any case, sorry to get off on a tangent. Let's look. Here's another one here. 142 units, 409 residents, making 38 grand. Postal route C61. If you're on this call and you're from anywhere around Pittsburgh, I would laser beam focus it on Westview. This is 1, 2, 3 postal routes identified within 5 minutes that make sense to drive my rental property buyers to those areas. I make commissions, I make management fees. By the way, the example I gave earlier, a guy who only owns 10 units and you manage them for him and you make $1,000 a month management fee and $1,000 a month on a leasing if he leases on average of 1 per month. Just imagine if you multiply that by 10. Could you handle $10,000 a month residual income plus the leasing fees? Well, it gets better. I went from 40 units to 200 units in less than a year. Then I doubled it to 400 units in another year. And then I went to 700 units by the 3rd year by managing properties for people. You do the math, okay? That's a pretty good day. So, in any case, that's Melissa Data. You guys, again, mark that, save it as a favorite. When I show you how to find the investors in Module 4, you'll be able to use this to entice them to work with you. Actually, I just mentioned that. In Module 4, we talked about direct mailing. So that data I just showed you becomes important, not just so you know what you're doing with your investors, but you get to use the same data to know where to target your direct mail. How about that? Oh, by the way, here's some statistics. I never got a return call rate less than 10%. I think my lowest one was 12%. Nobody can say that on typical mailers. Typical mailers, you get 2 to 3% callback rate. That's why you have to send out thousands of them, costing a lot of money. With investors, you send out 50 letters, maybe 100, and you get minimum 10% of them calling you back. So, in any case, sorry, I just that really gets me excited. Okay, here's another one, zipcodes.com. Again, it's I think 99.9% of the zip codes are covered in this data. Much higher level data, much more summary level, but very good information to have. And I'll give you an example here. We're back to Allegheny County. Let's see what we have here. Let's look. I think we're still at the county level. You can see, actually that should be, there should be a lot more than that for Allegheny County. Maybe this is just Pittsburgh. But you get to see the male population, female population, the median age, some more demographics. That's looks like race there. Total households, average household size. You think that could be important? Let's see if there's anything more here. Yes, there is. Okay, you want to write this down. This is census.gov website. So the very first thing I showed you way back in the beginning, which is the Southwest, I forget what they call it, the, hang on a second, let me go back here. This data here is SPC, sorry, Southwest Pennsylvania region is based on the census data, but I'm giving you the actual census URL, and that's right here, because I want you to study this. Matter of fact, I'm going to give you guys some homework here at the end of the night. We're not that far away, by the way, but I want you to go on to www.census.gov and get used to it, play around with it, and you'll see how the SPC region data was arrived at. I like using the region data, basically the conference data, because they take the census data and they compile it for me, and I don't have to do as much research. It's much easier to use formatted data. This data is awesome. I just tell you, you need to study this, okay? Each week I'm going to give you just about an hour's worth of homework to work on, so that by the time we get to the 5th class, you will already be working with investors and making offers, okay? Okay, let's see. I want to see if we have any questions, because I just covered a lot. So if you're out there, guys, use the chat box down at the bottom to send me a message or a question if you'd like, okay? And by the way, I'm not going to go into the census.gov because I've already given you 5 or 6 different tools you can use, and you can learn this on your own. You don't have to have me show you that. I just want to make sure you know it's out there and you should use it. You should, when you understand the census data, you'll understand how those other systems come into play. Now here's something more of it, even just as valuable. This is called a school report. I apologize. It's and I'm not going to be able to rotate this because you're watching my screen, and I'm not able to go in and rotate this while you're watching it. But what this gives you is the place where I have my broker's license. I actually have a broker's license in multiple places. I operate out of 11 different market centers. Still today, I have a team crossing 11 market centers. That's why I'm able to generate referrals literally from coast to coast, from California to New Jersey. But one of the things I use is, if you can just turn your head a little bit, this is called a school report. And in your MLS systems, if you're an agent here, you can get data at the school region level, school district level, right? So you've got, your state, you've got your county. So your MLS system likely covers multiple counties. In the county, you've got multiple cities, but you also have multiple school districts. You can see here, this is, I can tell this is Western Pennsylvania. Hopewell's a school district, Butler, South Butler, Mars, Seneca Valley. So what you want to do is look down here at the price ranges, okay? Then you look in these blocks. You've got active and sold. So you want to look and see where the greatest amount of activity is. You can see right here in Hopewell, most of the activity is in the $100,000 and $150,000 range. Now I might not want to focus a whole lot of attention there. If I want to make more commissions on helping my clients flip properties, if there's some in the 150 to 200 range, I might do that. But check this out. Here's 18 and 12, 18 active, 12 sold, 11 active, 17 sold. Wherever this is hot. 250 to 300, that's Butler. If you guys are on the call and you're anywhere near Butler, you want to take your investors to Butler School District because they have more sold than they do active. That tells me it's a hot market, okay? And you get a nice commission out of that, all right? Now here's the next one down, 18 active, 5 sold. So people at that price range over 300, they're not moving off their butts too quickly. So drop back to this level and you'll see you list them and you'll sell them, okay? How about, here's another one. This is Mars area. Well, this is a good one. 350 to 400, 20 active, 16 sold. Let's see, this is going to be 3 to 350, 7 active, 10 sold. How about this? That's going to be 300 to 350, 10 act to 26 sold. You better believe I'm going to be doing some business in Mars Township in these price ranges, taking my flippers up there, looking for the flip opportunities, turning around, selling them. And if I get three sides of that deal on a $300,000 house, that's 3 times 6, that's $18,000. That doesn't even include the original commission I got when I helped them buy the property to begin with. Here's Seneca Valley. How'd you like to flip a house 500 to 600,000 for your client? They make money, you make money, everybody wins. How about this one? 24 and 28. That is in the 3 to 350 range. You better believe if you're in Seneca Valley, you need to look at this data, determine where you're going to go take your investors to find flips, okay? Or do it yourself. If you're a smart agent, you're going to be doing this yourself. So that's called a school report. You should ask your office admin if they can produce this for you on a monthly or a quarterly basis. It doesn't change that much. I'd make it on a quarterly basis. And they should make it for the entire office, not just you. You could ask them to make it just for you, and you could have data that only you would have, but I don't think your office manager is going to be too keen about that. But here's the deal. Even if all your agents get this data, 90% of them plus won't even use it. They won't even know how to use it. So you can still corner the market based on you knowing how to use this chart. How do you like that one? Matter of fact, from time to time, give me a shout out down here in the chat box. I bet you a lot of you guys have never even seen this. I'm only bet. Matter of fact, I'll bet you $100 nobody on the call has seen this before. If somebody has seen it, you let me know and show me one, and I'll give you $100. Okay. The reason is I know the person that created this, and it's I got him to do it down in Virginia as well as Pennsylvania. Matter of fact, I think there's a couple of guys here on the call from Pennsylvania, so maybe I should have made that bet. In any case, let's keep moving on here. That's the school data. Let's see here. Okay, to the right neighborhoods. Now, I just showed you how to identify the right towns by using the census data, the zip code data. That's how you find the right towns. Now, we're going to cover one more section here tonight before we break on, so I don't want to overload you with information. Next week is going to be a big week. You got to really come prepared next week, okay? So for tonight, we're going to wrap up by getting down into the neighborhoods. Now, you look at neighborhoods differently depending on your client's motive. So if you have a client who's looking to flip, you'll be looking at certain neighborhoods. If you're looking for a client who's looking to buy rentals, that's going to be a different neighborhood. Essentially, there's three types of neighborhoods, A, B, and C. And we're going to get into that right now. I'm going to show you that, okay? Now, the A neighborhoods are your usually higher-end neighborhoods. Luxury homes, what they call luxury homes. In certain areas, that's going to be starting off at about $500,000. There's other areas, if you can believe it, where the entry point for luxury homes is $2 million. There's a lot of areas in California like that. In New York, same thing. It's Manhattan and around, let's see, certain areas of San Diego, Santa Barbara, Laguna Beach, California. Let's see, Washington, D.C. There's certain areas around there, Chevy Chase. You could be looking at $6 million, particularly like up in Manhattan. It's amazing. That's you got to be at $6 million to be considered luxury. How do you like them apples? How'd you like to do business in that area? By the way, Maria Babayev, one of my favorite agents, colleague, does business up there, and she routinely sells houses that are in the tens of millions of dollars. She's doing pretty darn good. I also know the agent who's sold the most expensive house on record to date in our country, and she sold it in the Silicon Valley to a Russian, I forget what they call those guys over there, multi billionaires, bought a home for $100 million cash, and she got to sell it. She got both ends of it, okay? Can you imagine getting a commission on that? I know people who could retire on that one commission alone. In any case, let's get into the description of these neighborhoods, all right? Come on, computer. Okay, I have A, B, and C. We talked about the A neighborhoods. Typically, you're not going to be doing a lot of business in these neighborhoods. You will have investors who, once they cut their teeth on middle-class B-grade neighborhood flips, they will move into the luxury homes. Now, luxury homes, the more money, the more risk. And you want your clients to make money, guys, because you want to make money. The more they make, the more you make. When the economy is soft, You don't want to be operating in these luxury neighborhoods too much because there's not a lot of activity. You can look at that school report. Let's go back to that school report real quick. And case in point, look at this, 1 million and above. You've got what? One sold. That's it. One sold property in a million and above. See, there's nothing else there. A couple active, but only one sold. So you're going to clamor and fight and scrap and scrounge with every other investor who wants $1 million listing and get nothing when you could be up here making tens of thousands of dollars. Or you go fish where the fish are biting, right? Okay. Moving back to where I was, ABC neighborhoods. B neighborhoods. Now you're going to do a lot of business in these B neighborhoods. These are your middle class homes. Most flips are going to occur here. If you look at the medium home price, let's see, what did I say here? 215, 225, 235. They're going up. And in some areas of the country, you're actually absolutely in an escalating or a ascending market. So you can start to push your price a little bit. When you're in a descending market, you have to always price ahead of where the market's going, so you have to price down. Okay, basic fundamental economics and real estate. But essentially, if you're working with investors who are looking to flip homes, you want to be in the middle class neighborhoods. You can push into upper middle class. You can go down to the bottom end of the lower middle class and do well there too. But essentially, if you look at statistics, man, you go right where the fish are biting, right? There's plenty of inventory and there's plenty of consumers. So why, don't fight the numbers, guys. Let the data, let the research work for you. Don't fight it. Go with the numbers. Always go with the numbers, okay? And here's another thing. Just like baseball, and I know it's an analogy, but the more you swing the bat, you getting these base hits, the more chance you have of getting a home run. All the $1 million listings I ever got, guys, I always got because I was swinging the bat in this middle ground here. And I had an investor who jumped up into here. Also, more importantly, this is really important, guys. Most agents are taught to work with the owner-occupied business, traditional real estate business, and go get those $1 million listings. Well, guess what? 90% of all the agents are trying to do that same thing. So you're competing with 90% of the agents for less than 1% of the activity. That's why so many agents get out of the business. It is a losing battle. Now you're working with investors. Far less than 10% of all agents work with investors, and yet investments make up 25% of the volume. It's like you're operating in a vacuum. That's why I love this, working with investors. That's why I did so well. I had no competition. I almost never advertised. And the owner-occupied business I had, it grew from the investor business. That's right. Those tenants eventually want to buy a house. All the investors, they live in somewhere. They want to buy and sell their own homes too. Who are they going to go to? They're going to come to you. So I never had to spend a dime on advertising to get the owner-occupied business. I got it as a result of the investor business. And I didn't even compete for it. How do you like those apples? So in any case, sorry to get off on a tangent there. Basically, you're going to be flipping in these areas. You're not going to do a lot of rentals in these areas, okay? Because it's the numbers don't work. I'm going to show you more of the numbers next week. What's called your return on investment, your net operating income, your cost basis. Basically here, the rents relative to the cost basis of these homes does not make sense for rental investors. So this is why you want to flip in these areas and not much else. Now in C neighborhoods, this is where you're going to take your investors who are buying rental properties, okay? This is very, very important. This doesn't mean you're in the war zones. We don't advocate going into war zones, all right? In the C grade areas, you've got upper C grade, middle C grade, and lower C grade. I like the middle C grade, upper C grade, even the lower B grades, middle class, lower middle class, those can be some decent rentals, okay? But this is your sweet spot. This is where you have the greatest amount of inventory, the greatest amount of people wanting to spend their capital there, and the greatest amount of consumers looking to rent there. Good renters want good properties, right? If you have good properties, you're going to get good renters. And if you have good properties, by the way, you're going to have an easier time managing them, and you're going to make better commissions on these. So if you have investors that want to go down into the dumps of the below the C minus, you don't have to work with them. You can fire your investors. Just tell them, I don't advocate working in those areas. However, I can refer you to somebody, and you refer them to one of your competitors at another company. Let them deal with those guys, okay? The way I'm teaching you is you're going to be working with good people with good money and good tenants, okay? That's how you make money in this business, all right? You don't want to go too low, and you don't want to go too high. You want to stick right in that sweet spot. So again, sweet spot for flippers, B neighborhoods. Sweet spot for people buying rentals, C grade neighborhoods. You could have single family homes all the way up to 10, 20, 30 unit buildings. We're going to focus our attention on 2 to 4 units in this area. Duplexes, 3 units, and 4 units, okay? I can teach you the bigger stuff. There's a different class for that. If you're interested in that, you let me know, or if you work with investors who are buying big buildings, you definitely need to let me know, because there's a separate set of rules of engagement. There's a different set of tools you use that you need to have to be successful. You do not want to go out there and not know what you're doing, guys. You'll get embarrassed. They won't stick around. They'll treat you like dirt, and that's not how we operate. We are sophisticated people. We are educated. We are informed, and now you guys are too. You got the information. You got the education. I'm going to walk you through taking the action by the time we get to the 5th class, and you will know exactly what to do, okay? So, in any case, a good example here is maybe a $100,000 building, bringing $1,000 cement. That's a 1% return. That's really not all that great. You really should be bringing in about $2,000 per month rent on a $100,000 building. It's hard to do. It's aggressive, but it happens every day. That's how I built my portfolio of rental properties. Okay, let's see what's next here, because I think we're getting close to the end. Again, right here, ABC Properties, avoid the war zones. That's below C-. I don't like the C- areas. I don't like the war zones. Okay, Module 1 homework. What I'd like you to do is go back through here, go to the websites that I gave you and practice using them. Just do it for an hour. We're into the part of the course now where you have to learn the basics. You have to apply what you learn and build some building blocks, because I can't turn you loose with investors until you know these basics. And remember, you're gonna know more than 90% of the other agents, because they're not taught this stuff. I know they're not, because I'm one too. I'm an agent. Actually, I'm a broker. We're all taught predominantly to work with owner occupants, and it's a different set of rules. The rules of engagement are completely different. When you learn these rules of engagement, which we'll get into in the next class, you're going to understand why the relationship is different. You can't use what you do with owner occupants will not work with investors. I can promise you that. You will get frustrated and you will give up. So pay attention when we go forward. Learn what I learn, do what I do, and I will leave you with this, guys. I have this all the time because I give examples and people say, I want to be like you. Well, I don't want you to be like me. I want you to be like you. I want you to be better than me. Remember, I've been doing this for a long, long time. You're going to have the information and the tools available to you here through this program so that you can go right out there and within 30 days start cashing checks, not months and years, okay? And by the way, we're heading into the winter months. What could be more important than building up even if you only had 2 or 3 investors, you're going to probably have about 6 by the time we get to the holidays. But how would you like that heading into the winter months? Making consistent commission checks, minimum $2,000-3,000. Okay, that's minimum. I mean, some of mine, I'll show you, $35,000 is not unheard of when you start working this business. And it doesn't happen within a few short years. You guys will, $180,000, $250,000. I got to 1 year, it was almost $800,000 in commissions just by doing this within a few short years. Okay? The reason why it's not taught heavily out there is because, quite frankly, most agents will put up blinders when they hear this stuff coming around. There's, investors. Well, we talked about that. We dispelled those myths. But also, most people are not teachers like me. Thankfully for you guys, I'm a teacher, and I make a business out of teaching this stuff, and I do pretty good at it. So, in any case, do your homework. Remember to study, and we're going to send you some stuff tomorrow. We're going to send you the 2 reports, the 7 problems with real estate investors and agents, and the other one is going to be 7 reasons why agents should work with investors. Okay, that's 2 reports you're going to get. We'll get you one tomorrow. We'll get you one Monday, and that'll kind of prime you for next Wednesday's class, which again we'll be getting into rules of engagements for investors, and you really need to be prepared for that class. It could go on for 2 hours. Okay. Now, any last questions here? I'm going to check the question box. I'm sorry I missed one earlier. Let me go back here. Let's see here. Okay, all right, that was just a comment. Thank you very much. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed this first class. I hope I showed you some stuff you've never seen before. I hope that you will use it. I hope you'll be prepared for next Wednesday, and I look forward to speaking with you then. I hope you all have a great night. Good night, guys. Hello, everyone. This is Gary Wilson.